Welcome back, Manny, and good to see you back in shul. Today is the fast of the 10th day of Tevet, and days gone by actually was a 3-day fast period known as the dark days of Tevet. People used to fast on the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th of Tevet. The 10th of Tevet, we commemorate the fact that the siege of Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, took place. It was the beginning of a whole chain of calamities which finally ended with the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash and the exile of the Jewish people from the homeland. Based on the Talmudic tradition that bad things happen on an unlucky day, it was decided to turn the 10th day of Tevet into a religious memorial day for the Shoah, victims of the Holocaust. On the 10th day of Tevet, 1949, Chief Rabbi of Israel, Rabbi Unterman, declared that the day which the first Korban destruction took place should become a memorial for the last Korban. So the first Korban took place on this day, so he said that we should commemorate for the last Korban, which was the Holocaust. And 2 years later, in 1951, the rabbis in Israel made this day, the 10th day of Tevet, as a spiritual day, memorial day for the Shoah victims whose date was on, and all those who have, if you have a day when you don't know when somebody passed away, this is also a day to say Kaddish for them. And it was declared and decided that every household should light a memorial candle on this day to commemorate the 10th day of Tevet. It's called Yom HaKaddish HaKloli, a day which the Kaddish, the Jewish prayer for the dead, is recited for people whose death or place of death is unknown, such as victims of the Holocaust. Other traditional mourning places are also observed on this day. People say Kelmoli Rachmim and following the Torah reading and Shacharis. However, there's another aspect of the 10th day of Tevet that makes it unique. It's the only minor fast day that will appear even on Friday. Usually we don't have a fast day on Friday, but the 10th day of Tevet will happen even on a Friday. This happened 2020, and it's again going to happen 2023. Now we get to the 8th day of Tevet. The Shulchan Aruch writes that the Torah was written in Greek during the days of King Ptolemy, and darkness in the world lasted for 3 days. And what happened was the king Ptolemy asked the sages to translate the Torah into Greek, the Septuagint. And since they did that, it's considered to be a dark day, and we commemorate this on the 8th day of Tevet. So the question is, so they translated the Torah into Greek. What's so bad about it? He took 70 sages, they were in separate rooms, and they all came out with the same translation. What's so bad that the Torah was translated in Greek? So one answer is that they were concerned because there were distortions that the rabbis put in order to make it, palpable for the Greek king. They made changes. They were concerned that the distortions would become part of the process. Or, number 2, they were afraid that the Torah would become more accessible to the nations of the world, which would lead to misinterpretations and distortions. Or, they were afraid that since the Torah is now translated in Greek, and Greek was a dominant language, that now the nations of the world would have access to the Torah. They would distort it, because there were distortions in there, would distort it, misinterpret the Torah. There was concern. However, the thing that I like the most, the opinion I like the most, is they were concerned that the translation was really a good thing. You translated the Torah so more people can have access to that. But the problem is that it was sad that so many Jews were illiterate in the Hebrew that they had to rely on a Greek translation. By the way, the Jewish Observer had the same observation when Archibald first came out with Megillah Esther. They said the same thing. They compared it to the 8th day of Tevet, because in Alchan Azvei, that you have Jews that don't know enough Hebrew, and you have to rely on English translation. The 9th day of Tevet is mentioned in the Shulchan Aruch, but the language is very cryptic. All it states that on the 9th day of Tevet is a sad day for troubles that occurred on that day that are no longer known to us. So how do we commemorate a day that has no meaning for us? So some say this is the Yahrzeit of Ezra HaSofer. He was as great as Moshe Rabbeinu. The only problem is we don't fast for Moshe. Why do we fast for Ezra? And what does it have to do with us that he did? And why was it kept secret? If the truth is this is the Yahrzeit of Ezra, why don't we say this is the Yahrzeit of Ezra? Some say that Ezra died on the 8th day, not the 9th day of Tevet. However, the Machzor of Vitry provides a very unusual answer. It's brought down that the Apostle Peter, whose original name was Simon, Shimon, we fast for him. Why? The Machzor of Vitry states that the original Christians were really Jews, and it was hard to tell a Jew from a Jewish Christian, like a Messianic Jew of today. So what happened was that Peter, or Shimon, became the first bishop of Rome, and his job was, he was a member of the Sanhedrin, he went and he said he's going to separate the Jews who were Christians from Judaism. So he made it more of a different religion, that it wasn't so much attached to Judaism. And he said, who wrote, he's going to live the rest of his life as a non-Jew to separate the two religions, to make sure there's a distinction between somebody who's Jewish and somebody who practices belief in Jesus. And he took the renegade Jews and he made a separate religion so the core Jews shouldn't be affected by it. But he had one request of the rabbis. He wanted to remember by davening a prayer that he wrote that should be part of the liturgy. And that prayer is Nishmas, which we say on Shabbos. And therefore the Chachamim honored his memory by fasting on the day of his death, but was kept a secret because for Jews they wouldn't understand, why are you fasting for somebody who's the first Jewish pope? And for Christians, it would come out like look like you're undermining our religion. So therefore it was kept as a deep, dark, secret day, which nobody really spoke about it publicly. That's what's thought about. Interesting, some people say that it wasn't Peter, it was Paul, but I think according to the Max of Vitry, it was Shimon, who was also known as Peter. Have an easy fast.